And next up, Erik Charles. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's really good to be here. Long time no chat. How have you
I,
been?
I've been running around, enjoying things. Some fractional CMO work, some advisory work, setting up people's comp plans. I had fun digging into about four different industries at the end of last year, trying to help people be prepared for this year. Now I'm on the follow-up calls to those clients and saying, "So, how's it working? You're 1 to 2 months. You're either a few weeks into the SaaS fiscal year, as we call it, or you're a month and a half into the calendar fiscal year. So, what's happening on your sales team? It's fun seeing how different people react to a New Year's launch and how do you get out of the Q1 doldrums."
It's really fun. As we're still waiting for Godard here, why wouldn't you just share like what's your biggest prediction, I guess, for this year?
Oh, this is a fun one. So I am a perpetual optimist. I will freely admit it. So I'm always betting on the pass line, not don't pass. If I'm at the crap stable, for example, and if I'm at roulette, I will put a bet on the greens, no matter how bad the odds are, because if it comes up, it's such a beautiful thing. So I am hoping we've got a little bit of economic stability. A lot of people are, choking on their morning coffee or their lunchtime soda right now as I say that. But the conversations I've been having with some of the people involved in Ohana Capital, which is the partner to Ohana operators that I'm in, are looking for opportunities to invest. I'm running into more and more companies that are at that $1 to $1.5 million in revenue stage, and they're ready to scale past founder-led sales and do something. There's a lot of interesting conversations, and I'm loving today's conversation on the AI side of things because that one's really big. Everybody's throwing out AI. We know this. Hugh and I have been hearing it for a decade, if not longer. For a while, people tried to say machine learning to hide that they weren't just doing AI or something. Then we all learned what LLM stood for, and all the lawyers are like, limited liability. What? No, no, no. It's a large language model. Calm down, calm down. And we would go down that path. But now I always said AI will be real when there's real application in a day-to-day business environment that doesn't require me to know how to code and maybe even know how to prompt. And there's some cool stuff like that coming out right now. One company I was talking to AirCover or aircover.ai, and they're another one of these agentic things, just helping sales reps keep on top of all of the information that's in their world. I mean, everybody just had sales kickoff recently, force fed a ton of stuff into hungover and exhausted sales reps, and now you're expecting them to remember it. It's like I swear sales is designed around the last minute people who cram for university exams instead of continuous learning is one of the challenges in sales enablement, in my opinion. Well, the agentic AIs that can sit there and decide and say, you're talking too much. Maybe pause and let somebody answer the question instead of jumping in. Or even, remember, these are the people that in your last conversation said they had problem X. Find a place to insert solution Y. Little things like that, I think, are going to be huge on the go-to-market on the sales side. The other one, the thing I'm probably most excited about for this year in AI on the agentic AI side is more on the paperwork side of things. Is I don't want to, I mean, and I was listening to the prior call talking about agentic SDRs and BDRs, and I can't wait to see it really work. And I'll have some stories when we get going. But I do think there's an place there for it's there's the updating Salesforce is one of them. I'm sure Agent Force is all around there as Benioff, as we're watching commercials and he licensed corporate bro to do a pitch session on Instagram and TikTok and the like. But even I was talking to a company that's using it in the healthcare space to help with just doing the paperwork. How much of your physician's time are you paying for care and how much are you paying for them to do the paperwork so that the records are properly done from a legal perspective and that they can get paid by whichever insurance you have this week. There's the areas like that are going to be great. Taking care of that, I'm really looking forward to knowing that whenever I pay for an expert, I am truly paying for their knowledge, not their ability to fill out a document.
Super interesting. Eric, I'm curious, have you seen the actually good applications of agents, agentic AI in B2B so far?
The earliest one I saw was honestly is a couple of years ago, and it was 6 cents.
Mhm.
Um, and it was, and this is back on the Agentic BDR. I got an inbound email. I was headed to the Forrester Summit, and it just said, "Hey, we know." And I was a customer of 6 Cents at the time, the company I was working for. That was when I was with Exactly. And I got this email from someone. We see you're coming. Would love to find some time with you and Jay Z to meet. While you're in town, and have you registered for our offsite location? 6 Cents threw a great offsite, by the way. Um, and I just responded the way I do. It's like, hey, that sounds great. Look, I understand you're reaching out. Look, I fly in on Sunday. I have a dinner on Sunday night. So I can't make it then. Monday, this is what my schedule looks like on Monday, and this is when the keynote is. So let's work around that. And I said, fantastic. There's a couple slots. Let me bring in so and so who will finish booking the time with him. And it wasn't until I actually met at the lunch that I realized that was an AI BDR talking to me conversationally via email, dealing with I mean, you've seen my emails. I send you like three quick dashes. Sounds good. How about this? What next? I speak in bullet points. This AI read my bullets, responded perfectly casually, perfectly conversational. That was actually my favorite example of that. I mean, it passed a very short Turing test. Now, am I looking for it nowadays whenever I get one of these emails? Absolutely. And I'll probably have like 20 LinkedIn invites from somebody who then wants to sell me something for Ohana operators. And I'm like, hold it. We don't go out, sending out 2,000 messages to companies who might want our consulting services. We choose who we want to help. And in the same way they choose us, we look for proper opportunities to assist because our outcome is not just a successful one for our clients, but it's actually to introduce them to some of the people we work with who like to invest in companies. Ohana Capital is working closely with family offices who are looking to improve their investment outcomes. So Ohana operators make sure their existing investments are careful, but we also will keep an eye out for good opportunities for them. I'm not going to spam 2,000 emails about that. It's just, I'm not going to pay somebody, but you get that generic one. So what do I do? I've now got like I'll freely admit it's just a notes file. And I just copy and paste things and drop it into. This is who we are. Once you've read the websites, feel free to read it out to me if you think you actually have something to apply. And that's one that scares me is like I can see some of these agents coming in right now, and they at least have the company name right and they spell my first name right. But what they're not doing is digging just a tiny bit deeper. It was kind of like on the last conversation to understand what my needs are. They didn't get it, and they just send. And I recognize that generic. It's a nice one, but I used to get so much when I was CMO. I mean, I would get 20 a week easy of, hey, would you like to switch over to this? And there was almost the same message across 15 different companies. Like, come on. Yes, you got my company name that I'm working for right. Yes, you got my industry kind of correct, but you're still not getting it.
If you were to build a marketing team now, like say it exactly, what would be the balance between AI agents, humans? What would you do differently?
Ooh, that's a fun one. I would definitely be looking for the best AI agents. And if I was at Exactly, I mean, this is people are gonna laugh. I'd probably first look at our clients, and see if any of them are building one, because I'm always a firm believer if someone's doing business with me, I'm gonna do business with them if I can. Not always. There are times I had to tell one of our customer success people, I know they're a client, I know they're good, but their product is atrocious, and there's just no way I am willing to risk my, bonus plan on their software. But I would be looking for agents to do the grunt work. This, do something that finds, I mean, Zoom Info or Apollo or Sixth Sense will sometimes give me all the names, but if an AI can help me build out the account profile a little bit better, update my Salesforce so that we're not sending emails to a CFO that left 3 months ago or anything like that, that'd be magnificent. If I could truly teach it, the kind of outreach, like, let it absorb, say, the persona messaging that I wrote for selling to a controller versus a CFO, and those are even two different sets of messaging, and do a few things to get that out there. Absolutely. I mean, Agentic to constantly adjust my Google AdWords spend. Sure. I mean, there are great people that are on SEO for AdWords, but we know that's out there. I'll tell you one place I'd love, I think everybody's going to be talking about is how do I make sure my company shows up in the AI answers? Like I run Perplexity. So I've got it on my phone or I've got it on my laptop. I enjoy running that tool. It's just a matter of fact. I was looking at OpenAI's deep research tool the other day, and it's $200 a month. It's really cool. I've seen examples of what it can do, of how it can do a lot of research for me. And yeah, I used to do that research. I still do that research, and basically by doing Google searches and things like that and digging into what can I find. So I went to Perplexity and said, who are the competitors to OpenAI's deep research, and are they any good? And it just generated this whole report for me of all the different people I could be looking at and how I might be able to work with them. So that's an interesting. Now we've got AI versus AI. I want to make sure my stuff shows up when I ask Perplexity a question, or if I ask ChatGPT a question, or if I ask Claude a question, or if I ask Gemini a question. And I think that's going to be a fun one on the SEO. I don't know if Agentic AI can help with that, or if it's just something going on. But I see, we have another picture popping up.
Welcome to the show, Godard.
Yeah, hi Julia. Sorry, a little behind, but thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. And yeah, join our conversation. If you were to build G2 Crowd from scratch, what would you do differently now? AI agent.
Well, and we are reimagining G2 right now. We're about to launch G2.ai because I do think the whole user experience in the age of AI can be totally different now. And I think like most websites, most software, I think it's going to be much more conversational interface and, guided by, and we've launched our Monty AI agent to be our virtual software buying assistant, trained on all our data and 3 million reviews. And so I think that's going to be the future of G2. And obviously, if I was starting today, maybe you don't even build a kind of a Web 2.0 interface anymore. Maybe it's only an AI interface. So I think we're in an exciting transition in our industry and for G2, kind of to an AI first world.
Well, that's kind of
Definitely.
when you said Monty, I was thinking Monte Carlo simulation for a second there, and I was like, oh, that could be really interesting. But I was trying to figure out how that would fit into G2. So,
Yeah, now Monty is our mascot. So our co-founder Mark Monty's inspired by Mongoose. And then when AI came out, we said, oh, great, now Monty can be sentient and can be really about smart to advise software buyers and sellers. So, but we're excited, yeah, that Monty's now a virtual AI agent.
so is it on the buyer side or the seller side?
Both. I think the first focus is to guide the buyer. And, I think the world of software is really exciting, can also be confusing because now on G2, there's over 100,000 different software listings in over 2,000 different categories. And those of us like you and I, Eric, that have been in software forever, it's kind of fun to nerd out about it and talk about categories and category strategy. But to most business buyers, it's confusing. And I think most business buyers just want to solve a problem. Like they want to improve their sales performance management. They want
Mhm.
to improve their marketing efficiency, but they don't want to go look for a specific type of software necessarily, like ABM software or ABM execution or,
Right.
sales commission. They want to solve a problem better. And I think that's what's exciting about AI on G2 is we can now just have the software buyer describe the business problem they're trying to solve in plain English, and they can do it, with AI, the beauty of it, they can do it by video, voice, text, however they want to do it. And then the AI can synthesize that problem and predict which software would best solve their problem. And so I think that's what's really exciting, about AI.
And I mean, that'll be interesting. And I'm thinking of it. It's when you said voice, I have this vision of just sitting in an executive room of like, look, we need a solution for our company in this industry, headquartered here. Just looking at a North American strategy. So I need Canada, US, Central America, Mexico, to use the geographic definition of North America, but maybe to say, by North America, do you mean US, Canada, or you really mean North America? Which I find some people forget that Central America is part of North America. And it
True.
would, and be able to then keep on saying, no, 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 hold it, but with this, because I agree. I think, it's funny. I remember being trained on solution selling when I carried a bag, and I sometimes feel that solution selling's been it's been pushed a little bit to the side by Challenger, which is great, but we forgot about what the problems on that. So you're gonna have so Monty will be able to sit there and I say I've got a company of 100 people. Can I tell it my budget and it'll even help?
For sure. And I think a lot of the demographics about you, your industry, your company, which you're right is very relevant to software selection, can automatically pick up because let's say you sign up for G2 with LinkedIn. And one nice thing about LinkedIn now, they also have the trusted ID and we're partnering with them. But then we already know all your demographics because your LinkedIn professional profile, has that information on your company, your industry, your company size, your skills. And so then the AI can much more quickly make recommendations and also we can train it to ask follow-up questions. As you said, like what's the size of your budget? And, then be able to give much better advice to the buyer. And at some point, though, I said it can also help the seller because at some point, I think the buyer wants to narrow in on a solution. And, at that point, Monty can also be trained by the seller to answer seller FAQs and to do a lot of obviously what an SDR, BDR can do, but do it right on their G2 profile and answer specific questions. Because once you go beyond budget, it might be, hey, what's the pricing of your solution? Monty can be trained to say, hey, it's this much per seat per user, and based on your 100 sales reps, here's even like a budgetary quote. And hey, would you like to sign up for a trial? Would you like to sign up for a demo? So I think it's really cool that, the AI agent Monty can guide the buyer, but at some point also, if trained by the seller, answer seller questions and, help the buyer walk further and further down the funnel.
So this is interesting because we're now taking more and more of the process out of the hands of marketing and sales. So let's just call the entire go-to-market team because that's when we can talk about is how much are we continuing to blur those lines between those two. And this is like you and I were tossing around some questions, and I'm scanning. And I was thinking about this, like how much are you willing to trust to an AI right now? What are the stuff that you're still not quite ready to let go? I mean, I will admit I have a Tesla and I played around with the self-driving. And I live in Orange County. I was coming back from Napa at the Bottle Rock Music Festival, and I got a free use of it for a month, and I decided to try it. It was nerve-wracking for the first couple hours as I'm leaving Napa, going through the various Bay Area highways, and then it's jumping between lane and lane on the five through the Central Valley to go around things. And I'm not sure if it took me a long time to relax just for that aspect. So on the business side, where's your line right now of go ahead, take the wheel?
Yeah, and I think you still need a human assistant in most cases, because I think we all know AI can hallucinate. It's not perfect.
Hmm.
But I think what I've also heard from Adam Grant, for example, the Wharton thought leader we've probably all heard of, but it's like a great AI can do like a great V1 draft. And for example, if I'm sending a board follow-up memo, I think it can do, and if I give it, especially if I give it a recording, right, it can do a great V1 summary, but it's never perfect. I
Hmm.
think any of us have used it to draft or synthesize some information. Yeah, it probably gets it 90% right. But I think I think it still requires a human to get it 100% right, and also to add tone and emotion. And I think we've also now all gotten used to generative AI just does sound kind of bland and boring, right? Because it kind of predicts the consensus of what a human would most likely say or do next. And it's pretty good, but also I think it's lacking personality, lacking customization. And I think the numbers, the facts just aren't 100% right. And, but I'd also say the same thing about humans and, talking about a seller, let's say. I mean, and we've all seen it with our SDR, BDRs, humans make mistakes too. And I think that's also interesting with self-driving. I think as Elon would say, yes, every once in a while, the self-driving will still screw up, but on average, it's better than a human and therefore actually safer. And I do think there's use cases in tech, maybe to answer sales FAQs, maybe the AI, and even if it's only 95% right, maybe it's already better than the human. Because a lot of those
Hmm.
jobs also, reality is we take, kids fresh out of school, if you will. We try to train them up, but also the human is never 100% perfect either, right? And I think that's always the question with AI. Is the AI, at least statistically on average, percentage wise, better than the human? And how risky is it? And frankly, an SDR kind of answering some FAQs, that's actually fairly low risk. Because worst case, to give a wrong answer, maybe you lose one prospect, but across your funnel, if it's more accurate 24/7, right, on average, you probably still do better with the AI. And obviously, driving is more critical, where obviously bad accidents can happen, people can get injured. So I think it's kind of that judgment, on average, is the AI better than the human at that task? And how much downside risk is there? And every application is different. But I think what's amazing about Gen AI, we're all seeing it, right? And I think, and you see the tests of ChatGPT where, now it's kind of doing PhD level science and keeps moving up. So I think the percentage of use cases, if you will, where the AI is at least statistically as good or better than the human will keep growing. And then I think, we can likely hand off, at least initially, kind of less mission critical tasks. And over time, we'll gain enough confidence to even let it drive our car without, having to look at the road anymore.
I'm gonna take this slightly sideways because you made a comment of we use kids right out of school, which I say the same thing. And because my last kid is coming out of school right now
Mm.
and applying for jobs, his older brother is 7 years older than he is, and he was able to get his start in the tech world as a BDR, SDR, and is now an enterprise rep. Little brother was looking into it and he keeps on hitting these walls of some companies like, well, we're not too sure. And we've either outsourced the BDR and we're looking at this AI. We might have one position, but we need you to move and leave the Bay Area. And I think, and yes, I know there's still tons of openings. I'm not letting them get away with, Dad, I can't find a job. But how much, put on your forecast. It's 5 years from now. What has happened to entry level jobs in go to market because of AI? What has happened to those kids who maybe majored in political science like I did
Mm.
years ago, and I was still able to find a job because people just said, "Okay, you're educated, we'll take you." What's
Right.
going to happen to that?
Well, and obviously I don't know for sure, but I do also have, we have twin boys who are now sophomores at the University of Colorado.
Ah, go
And
Buffs.
both, yeah, thank you. No, big fans of Coach Prime. That's been exciting. But they are both studying business. And actually, now that they're sophomores, they're kind of looking for their first summer internships. And so I am trying to give them a little bit of advice. I mean, I think entry level jobs will still be there. I think what I'm encouraging them to do, and also actually I got to speak at the CU Lead School in a couple of the classes, and also I'm encouraging the professors, hey, use the AI as a tool, because the reality is I think it's going to make humans better in their jobs, right? And for most of us, and even as a student, right, it's very much an assistant. And I think what we're seeing at G2, like our co-founder, Mike Wheeler, he's a coder, of course, studied computer science, but now, and he was already a 10x engineer. But with AI and Copilot and GitHub, he can probably be a 20x engineer. And
Hmm.
so I think that's true probably for most knowledge workers, right? If we use the tools, we can get better, we can get more productive. Obviously, I think if we don't use the tools, we're at risk. And I'd say the same thing for students, entry level jobs. Hey, get really good at using the AI. It almost reminds me of, when I started building companies 25 years ago, Google was brand new. And it was sort of a new skill everyone had to use. Hey, how to use Google? How do you do real-time research on the internet? And obviously everyone learned how to do it. And I think Gen AI, it's even a more powerful tool. But I think to any student, you've got to be able to use it. And I think even SDRs, BDRs, they won't totally go away, but they can probably be 10 times more productive. Because the amount of time they're spending to research an account, the amount of time for that first draft of the perfect outreach email, they can just get that much faster, that much better. And so, while the mix of jobs may shift, I think entry level jobs will still be there. And I think especially I think the humans, what we can do uniquely, we can still create the human connection. And one of my sons is interested in sales and marketing, and I think, like I said, the menial part of sales, if you will, like the manual research, finding people's email address, figuring out who to call, I think that
Hmm.
can all be much quicker. And then I think they can also have a quick V1 script. But then I think adding the personalization, the customization, the humor, the human connection, I think all of that maybe will be even more valuable and maybe even more differentiating because, the core, the road tasks can probably be done by the AI.
Yeah. Uh, So the fun on the AI is one of the things that the agent's supposed to be able to do is be human in terms of constantly learning and optimizing their pitch. And I've seen that. I mean, it's why we oftentimes start sales reps out even as SMB AEs, because if they mess up a prospect, it only costs us a little bit of money. And then as they learn how to adjust to the challenges that come in and get faster on the fly instead of and how many early sales reps sound like they're, reading from a script? We've all heard it.
Mm.
We've walked the floor at Dreamforce and heard the same pitch over and over and over again until they get it right. But that reinforcement, and you hinted at this, if the AI gets the wrong reinforcement, how do you keep it from going down the wrong path? Or is that human jumping in and catching it? It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I can see why you thought you should go that way. It actually doesn't work. I mean, those are human conversations I've had. How do we catch that in AI?
Right. And I do think humans certainly they'll sort of be part of our role. And then I think everyone's talking about agentic workflows. And I think you can also chain agents together, where you train one agent to check another agent.
Hmm.
Actually, I was just talking to a startup here in Boulder, Gravity Foundation. They're chaining together 30 AIs to basically create a virtual business analyst. But the idea with agentic workflows is, one agent can check another agent and even multiple, and you can have them play different roles, just like, we do in a human workflow. And
Hmm.
so, but I think the ultimate quality will still be human, right? And we have to monitor the process. And at the end of the day, the AI is training on human content. And so I think it's going to be a combination. But I do think, yeah, the AI can also be used to fact check itself more and more. So the V1 draft that the AI creates of, let's say, an outreach email, maybe today it's 90% good or 95%, but I imagine it's going to keep getting higher and higher. But I think still to make outreach good, and I think a lot of good at BDR, SDRs, or as an entrepreneur, I still do a lot of outreach, right? It's always about like some personal element where I
Hmm.
can refer back to, hey, Eric, remember that conversation we had, when you're exactly 10 years ago? Or, I think the human hook, the human connection, I think that is still critical, because otherwise, and because also with AI, the volume of content, outreach, marketing is just going to be pumped up and up. So I think to stand out, I do think the human connection, the human touch, the personalization, the creativity, I think that's still what's going to make it successful.
So how about, so we got that going. So how about negotiations, like pricing? Because I mean, I've certainly used G2 to try and get a feel for anybody that publishes pricing. I've gotten to arguments with people. We can't put our pricing on our website. We already had to put it on. We're listed on the App Exchange, and we have to put it on the App Exchange. So our pricing is already semi-known. And goodness knows, is like if I'm about to buy something now, I will look for logos on a company's website. I know somebody that'll call them up. It's like, what are you paying per seat for that? Just give me a ballpark. I don't want to find myself happy because I'm at 10% under list if this is a company that is always going for 50% under list. Are we going to see a balancing of pricing? Like, especially like even at the enterprise, all these agents are going to know what the final price negotiated was. Somehow, is that knowledge going to be shared until we stop mucking around on pricing and just say, this is what it is?
Yeah. Well, I do think over time transparency is growing.
Hmm.
Also B2B pricing. And I think step one was the internet. And I also remember being trained on solution selling in my first startup, like big machines, early 2000s. And
Yep.
back then, I think that was a common tactic. The seller could kind of control information, including pricing, right? And then you were kind of taught, hey, only give the prospect so much information because part of your power is sort of withholding information and then revealing it to them once they've revealed more to you. But I do think and the internet started this. I think it's only being accelerated by AI, right? There is more and more transparency. And I do think the AI can be a buying advisor. And I do think now, even public information, whether it's somebody's edition data sheet, and certainly on G2, we ask, all the vendors to at least share their list pricing, their editions, and now there's over 100,000 of them. And obviously Monty can synthesize that information. We do also ask reviewers at least order of magnitude, what kind of discount are they getting? And
Mhm.
so I do think the AI agent can be an assistant in your negotiation. And it's actually interesting. I think Gartner, they have a service like this for enterprises. They've traditionally used humans to do it, where especially for
Yeah.
large enterprise CIOs, right, they maintain kind of a off the record database. And then you can talk to one of their pricing analysts and they give you advice as a CIO about, what kind of a deal should I be expecting with Microsoft, let's say for Copilot. So but I think the AI will do that even better. So I do think over time, the world's gonna get more and more transparent. The buyer will be more and more informed. And I do think that probably will lead to, more transparent pricing. And obviously there'll still be volume discounts because that just makes sense. But probably deals will get more consistent, and we've probably all seen it, I think 15, 20 years ago. Like companies like Oracle, there's probably a vast difference on pricing, for the same licenses that customers would get. But I do imagine, I think AI will probably make the world better and that the buyer will be more informed. And frankly, therefore, the seller will also be probably incented to not play any games. And, so it'll probably take more friction out of the buying and selling process.
Or the friction out of the user conference when two of your
Sure.
clients are talking to each other over a drink and say, "So what are you paying for this?" And all
Yes.
of a sudden you're in the midst of a renegotiation. Um, yeah, I think transparency will be a good thing. I enjoyed my negotiations class, and and my friends over at Simon Kucher who have built an entire consulting path around helping companies with pricing, I think will take a hit, but then be actually more important in having justifiable pricing versus, oh, I think we'll charge this much. Does that work? I think
Sure.
that's such a fuzzy world we're in
Sure. And
reality.
I think what they also always tell you in negotiation, it's about more than just price. As you know, there's many other variables, and some of the more obvious ones are like contract term, payment terms, but also service levels,
Hmm.
partnership. Maybe am I going to develop a new feature for you, right? So, and I think that's also what they teach you in negotiation class in school is, hey, how do you, and I think especially in B2B, right? It's never, you're not selling a commodity, right? It's not just hey, it's not like, just a piece of steel. It's like, hey, there's going to be a relationship. There's many facets to it. And I think that can still and probably should be negotiated. Because I think that's what they say. I think a good negotiation leads to, more creative
Yeah.
win-win solution. And there's a lot more variables in price, as we all know.
Well, it'd be fun to see when an agent can actually write the SOW for a
Mm.
third-party system integrator because it could somehow was given access to the buyer's agent to say, yes, these are all the systems we have, and here's how much spaghetti SQL code we have sitting here running between these two boxes that you're going to run into when you try to plug this in to make it go. Um,
Yeah. And I do actually think that's happening. Like, I don't know if you've heard of Copado. Uh,
mhm.
but I was like talking to their CEO Ted, and they're actually working on that. They help companies with the whole CIDC, the whole software development lifecycle. But part of that, and they're not the only ones, right? But people are definitely using agents now to draft SOWs, and probably like every document we have in the whole well, selling and even the software development project lifecycle. And yeah, I think it's going to make all that easier, right? And probably like what I said earlier, like, is that SOW perfect yet? No, but it gives the consultant a really good V1 and probably can also be trained to ask the customer all those key questions so that the SOW can be as accurate as possible, But I think all those processes will likely get more efficient with the AI assistance.
It'll be interesting to see when we get an AI negotiating with an AI. The
Sure.
buyer and seller AI is talking to each other about the SOW. The pricing gets done fast. Now we're in the SOW for all of the different terms and even a legalistic AI to help you with change. So this is a change versus this is expected. I don't know when that will happen, but that could be another shift. Um,
Yeah.
you threw out Capado. I talked earlier about Six Sense and Air Cover AI, a couple companies I've worked at, and um, Full cast has got some interesting things on quotas and territories. Who do you see right now? Who are so I originally wrote this up with who's at the forefront, but that changes every minute. So what are some of the cool AI apps you're seeing in the business to business world right now, besides
And
your
I
own?
do, yeah, and I do think, everyone is now applying AI, and I think, and we're also, I mean, on G2, we're actually asking reviewers about that now, in terms of specifically asking, to what extent are the customers, the users using the new AI features? And, what use case are they solving with them and what value are they getting? Because I think it's a big question right now. And honestly, at G2, yeah, it's hard, hard for me to say who's doing it best, but I would say, yeah, certainly we see everyone adopting it. And I think what's also interesting for all the software developers, for all of us, yeah, I think the core LLMs are available, and whether we're using ChatGPT, which we're actually building Monty on top of, or you're using
Mhm.
Gemini or Anthropic, there's just so many options out there for the LLMs. So I think, yeah, there's so many applications. And I think what we're seeing about G2 is both, there's new startups. Like one category that's been really popular is like, the AI, SDR, BDR, and we're seeing a lot of startups like Unity GTM, for example. They're getting great reviews. And then of course, all the big platforms like Salesforce. You can also build your BDR, SDR agents with Agentforce. Sixth Sense has one. Zoom Info's launched
Yep.
also their Copilot. So I see really everyone in sales and MarTech launching agents, and I think they're exciting. But I think
But
exactly,
they're all starting at the SDR BDR stage. It's interesting. That's where they seems to be teaching it for the GTM, or are they in other places?
yeah. No, I think that's certainly. I think in GTM, certainly the SDR, BDR, and people have probably also gotten to the point more where it's definitely good for inbound, right? I think the full outbound doesn't seem to be working yet. I think on the
Hmm.
outbound side, it's more help you make sense of signals, tell you when to outreach, and give you a draft of the outreach.
Hmm.
But I think it's not full automation yet, on the outbound. Whereas on the inbound FAQs, I think you can probably let it, and obviously there's vendors like Qualified, I think
Yep.
doing that well, where I think more and more on the inbound side, I think it can certainly answer the prospect questions really efficiently, walk them further down the funnel. And then I think the other big use case we're seeing in GTM, I think is certainly writing assistants, like Writer, for example, but for marketing, right? For marketing content. And we're using a G2 and probably the same thing. It doesn't give you the 100% blog post, but it's the writing assistants are giving you great V1, V2. And we're seeing that with our own content team. Like they can
Hmm.
definitely produce a lot more content, probably with higher quality. So I think those are two great use cases. And I'd say the third one on the go-to-market side, I think customer support. And so if you look at Zendesk or Salesforce now, Service Cloud plus Agentforce, plus there's a bunch of startups like Forethought that are getting great reviews on G2. But that seems to be another great use case. And certainly case resolution, customer service support. And I have heard other startups reporting they're getting over 80, 90% case resolution and even going beyond simple cases. But now you can even chain agents to truly resolve questions, make changes in systems on behalf of a customer. And so I think those are just, three great use cases right there, both the inbound SDR, BDR, the marketing writing assistant, and the customer support case automation. Those are three use cases I think are already, seemingly crossing the chasm.
No, actually, I love the customer support, customer success side of things because odds are if you've got the problem, the company has seen that problem before. There is, I don't want to call it a canned answer, but there is a standard answer. It's the classic, did you turn it off and turn it back on again if ever I call my internet provider. But going, backing up from that, I think is really interesting and you can have years. Now that's which is fun because then your AI agent will get smarter and smarter back to that iteration. Y'all have got tons of great data at G2. You've been around long enough, so you can teach your AIs based on, I would have a ton of history to make it smarter and smarter. That would seem in the AI world to give a huge advantage to the Salesforces, Oracle, SAP, G2, anybody, Zendesk, Sixth Sense. They've all been around long enough. They have lots of data to train the engine. But you've just listed a couple startups. which so obviously they do not have a decade's worth of data to train. So how are we going to see a balance in the marketplace there?
True. And I think, I mean, also what's still true of the platform providers like Salesforce, obviously they're building Agent Force,
Hmm.
so powerful platform for enterprises to, I think what they would say, build trusted, secure agents. But at the same time, I think Salesforce is still very open to partners, in the App Exchange. So I think also ISVs can still, they can develop unique agents, they can develop unique AI and still tap into their customers' Salesforce data.
Hmm.
Of course, you're right. I mean, I think the Salesforces of the world would have the advantage, of maybe being able to optimize their agents across thousands and thousands of customers. But I think, yeah, which way that goes, honestly, I'm not sure. And I did interview Thomas Tungas, the VC, at our VC
Hmm.
conference. And I saw the VCs are bullish that there are opportunities for startups to reimagine. Now there's also, for example, there's AI first CRM startups being built. And yeah, because it could also be the possibility to totally reimagine CRM, right, without any UX, any UI, and maybe the future world is no rep even logs into CRM anymore, right? It's just behind the scenes. And I think it's also interesting, like Gong, for example, they have all the conversations. And I know now G2, we're using Gong, for example, to also fill in. We're using MEDPIC as our sales methodology. Our
Hmm.
new CRO, Eric's been rolling that out. But now the cool thing in MEDPIC and any sales methodology used to have to, they put like manual plugins into Salesforce, and then the rep would have to fill in like 10 fields, or solution selling had a plugin. Right now, the AI can do that for you because Gong can just parse all the sales conversations and say, hey, I filled in your MEDPIC for you. And the human like just proofs it. So I think that's also exciting where, I think there's just, ways to reimagine CRM and probably reimagine every system. And I think you probably also saw Klarna, they did a press release where they said, hey, they're going to, with AI, build their own CRM, build their own HR system. And so I think that's the opportunity for startups, right? Can we reimagine these systems and, without all the legacy and truly AI first? And so it'll be interesting. It's like one of those interesting inflection points in our industry. And I think certainly I don't know, and I think the VCs are betting all of the early startups. The incumbents are trying to innovate fast, and there's probably enough opportunity for both to win, but who will win bigger? I honestly don't know.
Well, and that's I think the reimagine. It's kind of like we're already seeing it with reimagining search. I simply open up Perplexity I mean, it auto opens on my laptop when I wake up in the morning, and any quick question I have, I just throw into that. I don't search. If I have a
Mm,
question, I ask Perplexity. And not that, and every now and then I'll test it against, Claude, chat and, and Gemini, see what the different answers across four different platforms are. And I'm sure somebody out there has probably got an interface that asks all four and drops it into a table for me or
mm.
something. But if not, someone should go create that until someone tells them to stop. But I think the CRM side to be able to log in and all of a sudden instead of the usual CRM dashboard, no matter how modified, just says, "Good morning, Eric. Here's the five things you should be. Here are the five things that are on your calendar, not necessarily on your calendar per se, but like based on recent conversations, you should probably do the follow up to these three companies and these two venture funds at Ohana, and don't forget at the end of this week." I mean, the true agent that's just going to sit there and remind me all the stuff I promised to do last week in recorded conversations that might have slipped my brain and I'm sitting here talking to you, staring at a screen, and I honestly have one, two, three, four, five post-it notes outlining my screen of big reminders of you still haven't done that follow-up. When are you going to do it? So, uh,
Exactly. And I think maybe, and I think what could be, you're not even logging into your quote unquote CRM. It's kind of hidden from you, but it texts
mhm.
you, it slacks you, it emails you, and then, yeah, you don't even have to log in that system. And obviously behind the scenes, it's still also, figuring out where there's an opportunity, doing your forecast for you, but I think that's probably nirvana for most sales reps. And I've also been in the CRM world, well, CPQ world, adjacent to CRM for many years, right? And that was always the challenge. How do you get your reps to adopt it? How do you get them to update their CRM? How do you get them to update the opportunity? How do you get them to use their CPQ to do their quote? And I think, yeah, that could be exciting about the future world, right? Sales rep no longer has to go into any system. It's behind the scenes helping them do the work. And of course, the CRO is still getting their reports, their dashboards, their business
Right.
intelligence, but maybe they're even getting a better forecast. And that's just driven by the AI, and the rep is no longer, having to manually update their forecast. maybe just
Oh,
reviewing it. So, and
AI
I,
forecasting, I obviously was watching that at exactly, and I know, and when Clary was a partner of mine, and some of those in Salesforce and Einstein, yeah.
yeah,
Can we? Why are you? I've always wanted to say to sales leaders, why are you asking a question you should already know the answer to, or are you actually just testing the rep to see if they know what you know?
yeah. And I think we're getting closer and closer to the latter. And I remember Mark Benioff when I was in Salesforce, like way back in 2017, which when they'd first launched Einstein, Mark was already saying that with Einstein, he would kind of check it against Brian Millham, the president and the other sales leaders, like, hey, which is better, right? Like, what's the human sales leader forecast versus the AI forecast? And I think you can also see it in apps like Clary, Gong. They're all doing that, right? Where they're giving you an AI forecast. You can check it versus a human, but it's kind of like self-driving, right? At what point do you take the CRO's hands off the steering wheel and
Right.
just trust the AI forecast? And we're getting closer and closer to it. And at minimum, I think it's a good check. Yeah, because now the obvious stuff where you used to have to like do a sales manager review, like, oh, you haven't had a call with that account, for this quarter. Like, how the heck can it be, in your
Yes.
and I used to take human scrubbing and human sales managers, and I think now the AI really highlights that, right? And I think you can even configure it to block that, right? Like, hey, if there's a certain amount of activity on this account, and I think all of these, Salesforce kind of tools now, they can plug into your Gmail, into your Slack, into your Zoom recordings, your Gong recordings, and kind of make sense of it for you. So I think all those areas are really progressing. And yeah, I do wonder how many more years, is the human hand still on the sales forecast wheel.
Right. Well, and I think another one there that it makes me think was like when I open up the CRM we're using at Ohana, I see so much stuff and it's analysis paralysis. And I'm playing around with the tool right now that helps me focus. Honestly, it just helps me focus because I'm
Mm,
the classic easily distracted by, oh, squirrel,
yeah. Now,
going,
so am
oh, I
I.
should.
As an entrepreneur, I share that, right? Oh, here's a new idea. It's like, okay, well, how about
Right.
how about how about following up on the last meeting? Like
Yeah. And if the
I
AI
think we
can
all
help me
need
just,
that.
yeah, hey, Eric, for the next 25 minutes, you're just going to do this. You're just going to chase this path. Oh, okay. That's a really good idea. I wish I would have thought of it. And it was like, you did last week and you told me to remind you. It'll be fun to see where all of that really comes in. Now, the one part you didn't mention though, as we're tracking all the sales reps for improving the forecast, is of course the cell phone since
Mm,
we don't have desk phones anymore. And yes, I know we're supposed to make all of our outbound calls through the VoIP system that the company is licensed this week or whatever. But that's going to be interesting of like, how do you, for companies in general, hey, we want to help you. Would you please let us, use this app on your phone when you make calls as opposed to using your actual phone number so we know what's going on with the customers or something. A big, I mean, sales has always been used to CRM Big Brother though. So,
true. And you're right. If there's one thing, and I think also we're all getting used to like our Zooms, our web meetings, or Google Meet,
mhm.
or we're getting used to that being recorded. But you're right, the mobile phone, and probably even like texting on iMessage, that still seems to be
Hmm.
outside the system
Yeah.
in terms of just, data not being available to the AI, potentially to train.
And
And
as Gen Z is selling to Gen Z, they're going to be, I mean, and I've observed this, they're going to be texting each other
true.
sometimes.
Well, they'll probably even like, like our kids I mentioned in college right there. They're still, I think they mainly use Snap to message
Yep.
each other, or they use Insta. Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how, yeah, that kind of communication, how can that data get into the AI, to inform the forecast and all of that. That might save
Especially
them.
since Snap was designed not to put anything into the system. It was supposed to be the auto delete, and there is
True.
no record here
And
interface.
it's still very popular. I think just talking to my kids, right? I think it's
Yeah,
still their
same.
primary use of communications.
Uh, let's see. So I did start this earlier with what is your forecast or prognostication? What are you willing to what's next on the roadmap for Monty that you're willing to share on in this forum?
Well, I think what we're excited about, like I said, we are going to, and obviously G2.com is our destination for software buyers, and we have over
Hmm.
100 million coming every year. But we're going to launch a G2.ai more as a kind of alternative interface where we can really reimagine. kind of an AI first buying experience. And like I said, G2 to me, and it's not just G2, right? But it's kind of called like a Web 2.0 site, built about
Hmm.
10 years ago, and probably similar to any site, like a Yelp or a TripAdvisor, where with a traditional Web 2.0 interface. But I think we're gonna, reimagine it with just a clean AI first interface. And kind of like you mentioned, you're going to Perplexity now for search, but is there also a whole new, better experience we can create for software buyers? And it probably won't have the 2000 categories. And yeah, because in some ways, when I think about it, we almost built it like Yahoo, and you probably remember it. I remember the first version of Yahoo, but it was like a human created hierarchy
Yep.
of the internet,
Yet
and it was pretty
another,
good.
yet another hierarchical officious oracle, I believe.
Yes, that was the that is what Yahoo means.
Yeah.
And but I think in some ways that's how we've built G2 and frankly most software websites, right? It's still a human defined hierarchy of
Hmm.
categories. And obviously I think we've all needed that, but in the future maybe and it'll be interesting, right? Also very disruptive. And partly we've been wanting to disrupt the Gartners of the world, right? You have the Gartner quadrants of Forrester waves. And but that's traditionally all been based on one analyst opinion and how the analyst defines the category. But maybe that's not needed anymore, right? And and we won't have to shop for software through hierarchies and categories, but we can just talk to the AI. And as we said at the beginning of the call, right, describe our problems. The AI has context on that user and can just make much better recommendations. And
Hmm.
so that could really change software go to market, right? Because I think we also it's fun like to do category building. And like I remember, our first company, Big Machines, were involved in building the CPQ category, and ultimately that was very helpful to us and our customers. But maybe in a new world, there won't be categories anymore in software, and
I,
because all the search and discovery of apps is done through AI.
I think the categories are definitely ready for disruption. Oof. We should almost have a drinking game around that. He said
Mm.
disruption, take a shot or something, but it's 11 o'clock in the morning, for me. Um, I think one thing, free random advice that you probably already know. When I think about a natural question I'd ask G2 is like, hey, I've got a new company. I've got a company I'm advising. They're at 1.5 million. They're B2B. They target this industry.
Mm.
What's a good tech stack for them for the next 4 to 5 years? So it's not just I need a I don't need a CRM. I need a place to have the records to track this stuff, to maybe do some pricing and put it together and all that. And asking for tech stack that's all integrated with each other. And then if I were asking Monty, maybe my follow-on question would be, great. And how many of those have agents that will talk to each other to make sure that all knowledge is being passed up and down the go-to-market tech stack?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think yeah, for startups certainly you just like picking one app standalone is never that useful because it has to be in context of what's my best practice stack. And as we all know, the interoperability of different apps ultimately makes your stack work or not. And I'd say the same thing for like a CRO, or a CMO or any line of, functional leader. They really need a cohesive stack. And like you and I lived in that, CRM ecosystem for years, and I think we were both in the Salesforce camp, but obviously
Yep.
other apps were more in the Microsoft Dynamics. And so that interoperability is really key. And I do think that's part of what AI can do is, especially, and I think with the AI, we can discover a lot of your stack already, and then maybe ask you some more questions on stack, on the rest of your tech stack, so you can make much better recommendations. So I think you're right that, and AI can do all of that better because it can digest more context and then obviously compare it to the context of the stack of other customers that have written reviews and then say, hey, people are already running Salesforce or people are already running Dynamics. Here's what they're having more or less success with
Hmm.
based on that tech stack context. So I think you're right that's always been important, but traditionally it's probably been more something where we've relied on like consultants or peer advice, right? Or you had to go to Dreamforce to figure out what worked
Yeah.
well on the Salesforce stack. And now you can probably just ask the AI, like, hey, I'm running HubSpot. What are the, what are
What's
the,
the SPM in there? What's the CPQ for in there? What's the yeah.
yeah.
Now,
And
now here,
probably can also make recommendations also, hey, because most of the suites including HubSpot, they're all growing. They're adding more of their own modules, more of their own functionality. Salesforce certainly has over the years, right? And then, hey, should I just go with what the suite vendor is providing, or is it worth going best of breed here? And these are all interesting questions that, traditionally you've needed probably peers or experts to talk to. And I think this is all information the AI can be trained on and probably make, pretty good nuanced recommendations that considers the stack and also considers, hey, do you want to go best of breed for this functionality? Do you want to just go with the suite vendor? And advise software buyers to really optimize their whole tech stack with
Hmm.
context.
Well, and I wonder if we're going to hit the an era of agentic APIs. I mean, we've always worried about who's got open APIs, who's got a REST API, who's got all the different ways. How quickly can we just have an agent do it? A third party agent that will talk to two of the pieces of our tech stack. But we are at least according to my clock, about a minute, and Julia will come hunting me if I talk long, because I may have done that a few times when we've had these. So I'll pass the
Thank you.
ball to
Thank you so
her.
much, Eric. Thank you so much, Godard. The community enjoying this. Godard, I can't help but ask you, are you going to enter the agent marketplace space? Agent AI, the agent force?
I don't think we're going to create our own agent marketplace. I think we're more going to try to provide software buyers insights on which agents work best. But I do think the agentic marketplace is an exciting trend. And like I said, we just want to help buyers, pick the best agents and maybe figure out which is the best marketplace for them to go to.
Thank you. And what's the best way to support you? You mentioned Monty. Where should our community go?
Well, for now, I'd say you can sort of go to g2.com. Monty's on the homepage, so if you want to try it, and also, feel free if you have feedback ideas for G2. I'm always trying to get better, so my emails just go to the G2 and or ping me on LinkedIn. But look forward to hearing from some of you. And thank you, Julia and Eric, for having me.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.